Welcome back to the Silage Zone for part 3 of our discussion around BMR and non-BMR for net farm dairy income. So as we discovered in part 2, what was the main take-home message? Cows that got BMR pre-calving and up to 3 to 5 weeks post-calving in those studies held that milk production advantage even when they got switched to those very lower digestible on the fiber side corn silages. What we want to discuss in this part 3 is there are other opportunities, and we think there is. Feed efficiency, and that's the part we want to bring this home with. So one of the last studies we're going to look at was done at Minor Institute. Again, very big differences on the 24-hour NDFD of almost 35% on the fiber digestibility. What do we have here? Well, it was a mid-lactation study, averaging 196 days in milk. Very high corn silage diet, again, 43% of the dry matter. The other 42% was a corn-soy based grain mix. What were the results? Well, if you look at it, as you would expect, just like if you think back to that Utah State study, where at 16 weeks you saw that separation out there where cows eating BMR were eating quite a bit more dry matter intake, the same exact thing happened here. But the challenge is it didn't affect milk yield, milk composition, time spent eating, or anything. One thing that it did show as they did a 24-hour rumen sampling was that those cows that were eating more feed that were receiving BMR had a lower rumen pH over a 24-hour sampling period, and we'll see that on one of the upcoming slides. But the big take-homes here is that we had cows eating 5 to 6 pounds more dry matter that were receiving the BMR at a very highly significant level, P less than 0.001, and the milk per pound of dry matter intake conversion, our feed efficiency, was 1.6 versus a 1.5 for the BMR. So again, cows were in mid to late lactation, eating a lot more feed, but we weren't getting paid for it. The other part of that study, the result that we saw was when they did the sampling of the rumen over that 24-hour period, the BMR cows in the red show that their rumen pH, which is listed on the vertical axis here, 5.4 to 6.6, was significantly lower than the non-BMR cows, which is exactly what you'd expect. If they're eating more feed, they're bringing more total fermentable carbohydrates and everything else past that rumen, it's going to drop that pH. Didn't get down to a supercritical level, but we know that we want to keep that rumen pH as high as we can and still maintain production. So again, that's another challenge that we're looking at in mid to late lactation cows if we're feeding a pure BMR corn silage diet. So what's all this have to do with net farm income? Well, this is a little bit remedial, but this is a simple graph that I wanted to bring up. It's about gross feed efficiency. And if you look at the graph on the left, it's saying, okay, on the vertical axis, this is what cows can do in regards to pounds of milk per pound of dry matter intake. And we know the slopes of those lines as it moves out on the horizontal axis in days in milk all fall off the same regardless of where they started. Start high, the slope down continues to be the same. So the other part it's saying here is if you look at a 16,000 pound herd, the lower dotted line, over a year's time, their gross feed efficiency is around a 1.15. A 22,000 pound herd would be 1.4. 28,000 pound herd, a 1.6. Well, those are big dollars as we'll see later on here. But again, it's all about where they peak, about how they finish. Now, we used to be able to change that slope of that line a little bit with BST, but no more. So they all fall off the same. It just depends on where they start on that peak. On the right-hand side, if you look at the bottom line, dollars, again, using 10 cents per pound of dry matter feed cost and about 17 cents per pound of milk, what we have listed there in regards to income over feed cost is what we have to pay all the bills in the herd. So a 16,000 pound herd on a 1.15 gross feed efficiency with those numbers listed above, you've got $1,329 to pay the rest of the bills on the farm. 28,000 pound herd, you've got a $3,000 total to work with. So when you go from a 1.15 to a 1.6, that's a 39% improvement in feed efficiency and a 126% improvement in income over feed cost. So again, that's a huge difference. But even if you move up from a 1.4 to 1.6, that's a 14% improvement in feed efficiency, which equals a 39% improvement in income over feed cost. So anything we can do to get those cows to peak higher by getting them to eat more pre-calving and post-calving should be good. This I bring up is a study that was also done at Minor Institute that really talks about how cows are able to respond to fiber digestibility. This was put together by the folks up there, and basically what you see on the graph is, on the vertical axis, is how the cows responded in milk production when they were put onto the study. So milk production across the bottom, how they responded as far as being a positive or a negative in milk production when they were actually put on this study that was comparing a very highly digestible BMR, F2F444, versus a highly digestible grass silage. As you can see, the lower producing cows had a couple of cows that actually had a bit of a positive response above the zero line, but most of them were actually negative. And if you look at the cows out on the higher production side, they were all positive to a higher fiber digestibility diet. So what's this basically saying? Who are the cows that can really improve fiber digestibility? It's your early lactation, higher producing cows. And from what we saw in the studies in part 2, we need to get that higher fiber digestibility, the BMR, into those cows pre-calving and right after calving. Now, what I've got here is something I broke down to look at both the cow side and the agronomic side. And this particular example, I'm saying, okay, this particular farm may be planting all BMR, or 365 days worth of BMR. If we look at what we learned from these studies and apply it to the farm, we're going to propose to them, hey, why don't you plant enough BMR to feed them that last 20 days before they calve and the first 60 days after calving, so that we can feed BMR all the way through until they get to their peak dry matter intakes. So in this particular example, if you look at this, we're talking about 1,000 cow dairy, but if you're 100 cow dairy, divide it by 10, or if you're 2,000 cow dairy, take it times 2. But I use 10 cents per pound of dry matter intake. We said that cows in mid to late lactation were averaging 85 pounds of milk, eating about 57 pounds of dry matter intake. You come down there, that would be a current feed efficiency of 1.49. If we go back to that Minor Institute study where we saw a 1/10 improvement in feed efficiency, and we're able to take that up to 1.59 by feeding non-BMR in mid and late lactation cows, our resulting dry matter intake is 53.4 pounds, or approximately a 34-cent per cow per day savings in reduced dry matter intakes. And on this particular herd with that scenario at 1,000 cows, that's over $90,000 in potential savings, going from 365 days of BMR down to 285 days. Now, if we go to the other side and look at the agronomic piece of it, we're going to look at, because we have that 12% yield advantage in non-BMR, and we can go from 1,200 acres of BMR silage down to 263 based on only needing 80 days, that gives us an opportunity for planting fewer total acres. And if we use an average rent per acre of $175, as you see there, that opportunity cost savings based on acres needed for silage comes in close to $20,000. Again, if we can go from 1,200 down to 263, that's that many fewer acres we have to spray with fungicide. That's another $25,000 that can be a positive net income for this operation. And then because cows are eating less feed, like we showed on the other side, going from 57 pounds down to 53.4, we're going to have less manure to haul. So another $5,300 for a total of almost $50,000. So in this example, we have the potential of moving from all BMR to 80 days worth of BMR to $140,000 net income benefit based on feed savings, maintaining milk production, and having that agronomic savings on the other side. So that's it. Wrap up. Want to just cover up what we did in all three parts. Definitely want to take advantage of the positives that BMR offers, pre-fresh and post-fresh. We need to get the BMR in those cows to really get its advantage that it provides. But after that, let's look at utilizing non-BMR for post-milk production, getting that feed efficiency benefit, and also capturing those agronomic benefits. What's the drawbacks? We got to consider hey, can you get your cows grouped right and manage 2 silage faces to improve your net income? And what we saw in our example was $14,000 per 100 cows is something that can be achieved if you're at an all BMR today and you can do the grouping with your cows and manage 2 faces. And with the ability that we have with L-buchneri inoculants to do that, it's a huge positive to where we can manage those faces and keep it fresh so that our overall net farm income is a positive. Thanks for joining the 3-part series around BMR and non-BMR allocation. Hope that was helpful. Please contact your local Pioneer Seed Agency to discuss this further.
That concludes this Pioneer Agronomy video podcast. Visit our page on pioneer.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more agronomy insights.